Outstanding for the Speaker of the London Borough of Hackney, Councillor Jimena Garcia.
Good evening. I would like to welcome those seated in the chamber and those in the committee rooms to Hackney Council Annual Council meeting. I would like to extend a special welcome to Mr. Stephen Howlett, CBEDL, Representative Deputy Lieutenant for the London Borough of Hackney. This meeting is being live streamed, so I would also like to welcome those members of the public who are watching at home. On such an otherwise happy occasion, it is with great sadness that I have the sad duty of reporting to you the death of a past member of the council, David Pollock. David, who was born in February 1942, died on Friday in St. Joseph Hospice after a long struggle with cancer. David, who served as a councillor in the 1970s and 1980s, lived in Stamford Hill for many decades, but remained active in the local community almost until his death. And finally, before we begin the formal proceedings of the evening, I have a few housekeeping announcements. When speaking, please ensure you speak into the microphone so that you are picked up on the live stream. Please, can you turn your mobile phones to silent or off so that the proceedings are not interrupted. There are no planned fire alarms this evening, so in the event of the fire alarm sounding, please remain seated and you will be escorted to the nearest exit. Prayer rooms are available on the ground floor in rooms 63 and 58. Moving on to agenda item 2, election of the Speaker for the municipal year 2023-24. I now invite nominations for the position of Speaker for the municipal year 2023-24. Are there any nominations? Mayor Glanville.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to nominate my friend and colleague, Deputy Speaker Anya Sizer, as Speaker for the next council year. It is not often that a future first citizen of Hackney slips into your DMs late at night and engages you in conversation. But that's what happened to me in June 2018. And we bonded over a shared love of street parties, cake judging, politics, feminism, and of course, Taylor Swift. As the Queen of Oldfield Road, you drafted me into the bake-off judging of perhaps one of the toughest jobs any mayor can do. But with hope, an empty stomach and a mug of tea, we took it on. Fast forward to 2021, when I next remember Anya and you were standing in the Hoxton East by-election. It was an honour to campaign with and for you, and by-elections are never easy, but you built a strong team and were elected to the council, standing up to Hoxton ever since and winning re-election in 2022. Madam Speaker, Councillor Sizer isn't just a community activist, trade unionist, or even a Labour councillor. She's a tireless campaigner outside of the council too. Madam Speaker, she's one of those special people where the lines between professional and personal intertwine and overlap, campaigning for better representation, equity and provision, both in the health system and the workplace. You also stand up for a better care system, including the area of adoption, fostering and send families and their rights. In preparation for this important role, Councillor Sizer has performed with notable distinction over the past year as Deputy Speaker, supporting you and the whole Council across a wide range of civic activities where your office has received simply too many invites to be fulfilled by one fair citizen alone. I'm sure you won't mind, Madam Speaker, if I mention a few of them. Councillor Sizer led the Hackney Parade during Remembrance Sunday when we honoured our war dead. You stood in to present numerous awards in road safety events. You chaired the full council in November, again on Madam Speaker's behalf, and you presided over citizenship ceremonies. No event is too early for you either, Councillor Sizer, from flag raising to attending breakfast with the Hackney Armed Forces and Veterans Breakfast Club, and you also took part in the Pig's Ear Beer Festival, where you raised not only a glass, but over £1,000 for the Speaker's charity, St Mary's Secret Garden. I'm really excited, and I'm not going to steal your thunder this evening, but your three nominated charities, a true Hackney institution and two Hoxton icons, are going to be incredible to work with during the course of the year. I have your dad and stepmum in front of me, and I know Damon, Chris, Hope and Barney and your dog are going to be wonderful additions to our civic life over the course of the year. So may your year be full of cake, community and civic action, all under the watchful eye and support of Consort Bramble. So in closing, I hope we can all agree that Councillor Sizer comes to the role oven ready, as someone once said, and continuing the baking analogy, and I have no hesitation in nominating you as our first citizen and speaker. Thank you.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Race, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm delighted also to second my friend and ward colleague, Councillor Sizer, to be this year's Speaker. I've had the honour and pleasure of working alongside Councillor Sizer since she was elected in the by-election and since our last election in 2022, during which she's made a huge impact on the lives of local people in our community. She's engaged across the community. She is on top of her casework, fighting doggedly for local people, and also as a trustee of our fantastic Ivy Street Centre has helped them into their new building, and they will continue to make a fantastic impression and impact on our local community as well. Over the last year, as the Mayor has mentioned, Councillor Sizer has thrown herself into the role as Deputy Speaker, attending schools to taught students about democracy and voting, throwing herself into fates and charity fundraisers, and supporting Councillor Garcia in her role as Speaker. And Councillor Garcia, you've been an absolutely fantastic Speaker this year, so thank you very much. She also looks after her fellow councillors. I think the less said about her trying to force me to take a Tesco carry bag stuffed full of pastries ahead of a meeting, the less said about that, the better. And on that note, as we've already mentioned, I think there might be a theme. We did not collaborate on our speeches, but it's fair to say that wherever there's cake in our community across Hackney, Councillor Sizer will be there. And frankly, woe betide any community organisation that has an event with cake over the coming year that doesn't invite Councillor Sizer. She may just turn up anyway. So be prepared for that. But in seriousness, Councillor Sizer will fulfil the duties of Speaker with grace, with kindness and with enthusiasm. And I can't imagine a better person to represent our borough over the coming year. And so therefore I'm delighted and proud to second her for this role. So thank you very much.
Do any other members wish to say anything in support of the nomination? Yeah. Sorry. Can I call Councillor Woodley, who has indicated she would like to speak in support of the nomination?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Our Speaker is tasked with representing all of us, so no pressure. You have an opportunity to inspire, collaborate with and celebrate Hackney residents and the values we stand by in this borough. In supporting your nomination, Councillor Sizer, I know that like Councillor Garcia, your fantastic predecessor, you'll bring great warmth and character to the role. You have ambitions, I know, to raise the profile of Send People Forum, increasing awareness of fetal alcohol syndrome, supporting your charitable causes, and ensuring you have a really special and productive year. And I'm really looking forward to helping you in all of that.
Are there any other nominations? No, thank you. Can we agree on the nomination of Councillor Anya Sizer to the office of Speaker for 2023-24? I declare that Councillor Sizer has been elected Speaker of the London Borough of Hackney for the municipal year 2023-24. We now come to the exchange of the Speaker's chain, so there'll be a short pause in proceedings. Thank you.
Can you please retain your seats while there's a short break in the meeting? Thank you. If you're please now be upstanding for the Speaker of the London Borough of Hackney, Councillor Anya Sizer.
May I please ask the incoming speaker, Councillor Sizer, to raise her right hand and read out the words of the Declaration of Acceptance of Office.
Councillor Anya Sizer, having been elected to the office of Speaker of the London Borough of Hackney, hereby declare that I take the said office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties according to the best of my judgment and ability. I'd like to advise Council that my consort for the municipal year 2023-24 will be Bernadette Bramble, who is seated to my right. We will proceed to agenda item 3, vote of thanks to the outgoing speaker. May I invite Mayor Glanville to give the vote of thanks to the outgoing speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Before formally moving the vote of thanks to our outgoing Speaker, Councillor Garcia, it would be remiss of me not to thank some of the key people who've helped make your year in office such a success, including our Deputy Lieutenant and Councillors Desmond and Rathbone, and of course you, Madam Speaker. I also can't go any further without also mentioning your family and especially your mum, Najma. You have been an exemplary first citizen, former Madam Speaker, but she has also been your tireless consort, and I would argue probably firmly Hackney's first mum. Cares more, I think, about whether you or I are eating or looking after ourselves than almost anyone else, including my own mother, and you're always incredibly generous with your time at civic events and inviting us all, many of us, to your home, especially to celebrate Eid. So I'd like to thank you as consort and also your other consorts that supported you during the course of the year. Madam Speaker, this is of course a tribute to you. And thanks to you, Councillor Garcia, from Youth Parliament to First Citizen is a unique journey, and it's based on your hard work and dedication. When I first nominated you last year, I mentioned your history of youth activism and empowerment and what you have already brought to the Council and what you would bring to your civic year. You already are and remain our youngest councillor, but you had other firsts as well, being our youngest speaker, our first hijab-wearing first citizen, and you brought all of the wisdom and grace to your office way beyond your years. And Madam Speaker, what a unique year it has been for all of us and for you. A real mixture of sadness and celebration. I think a year unmatched in our history, where you went straight into the Platinum Jubilee celebrations and the beacon lighting on top of the Hackney Empire, before at the end of the summer, marking the passing of our Sovereign Her Majesty the Queen and proclaiming on the Town Hall steps King Charles King, and most recently leading the borough through the coronation. No one in this chamber or beyond will ever experience a civic year like the one you have, and you have represented us through all of those significant events. As Speaker, you've already raised over £7,500 for your chosen charity, St Mary's Secret Garden, and they've provided flowers in the assembly rooms tonight, so thank you to them. Events during the year have also included a very special Silver Sunday in the garden, complete with dancing on video. No one ever needs to see that video again, I think, Madam Speaker. You held an incredible speakers dinner at the Beauvoir Block. And I also want to just note that you've got a team running the half marathon on Sunday, which I no doubt will increase your £7,500 donations, and it's led ably by our acting Chief Executive, Ian Williams. Councillor Garcia and her team conducted over 206 events during the course of the year, including citizenship ceremonies where you welcomed hundreds of citizens to full citizenship in the United Kingdom, community activities, events in our schools, supporting local organisations, those special Hackney celebrations, and of course, these full council meetings. And there's many former speakers in the chamber, but I think you've presided over this chamber with absolute calm authority and generosity, and I'm sure all of us thank you for that. My sort of final highlight, I think, is where you led and organised our first civic Eid in the Town Hall atria. You brought together not just the diverse Muslim communities of Hackney, but all of us to celebrate this important festival. And I hope, like you, that this will now become a permanent civic fixture for years to come, and only one of the legacies of your civic term. So thank you, Councillor Garcia. May I offer you my personal thanks for all of your work as Speaker, and invite the whole Council to join me in gratitude in the usual way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Glanville. I now invite the Conservative Group Leader to say a few words.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Not much I can add that I wouldn't want to already add to the Mayor's very fulsome and generous and well-deserved farewell speech, I suppose, for your year in office. But I do want to say, I want to join in that. I absolutely agree with everything you said there. And of course, I'd like to welcome everybody here this evening, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, for the very first time at Council AGM, His Majesty the King's representative, Lieutenant Stephen Howard, a role that I hope he will continue to carry out with his customary aplomb for many years to come. Madam Speaker, I shall take this opportunity to thank Councillor Garcia for the enormous contributions during the past year to have this civic life, to promote community harmony and cohesion, and included that many citizenship ceremonies, and of course, your selfless commitment to the charitable causes you supported and the funds that were raised as a result of your year in office. Your good-natured and even-handed running of council meetings were much appreciated by everyone in the chamber. And so, Madam Speaker and Councillor Garcia, all that remains with me is to thank you once again for the sterling service you provided on behalf of the council, and we wish you every success going forward. Thank you again.
Thank you. I now invite the Green Group to say a few words.
Thank you very much. I'm very privileged to extend the Green Group's thanks to Councillor Garcia for welcoming us to many of the several great fundraising events in this past year, including a dinner at Mangale 2 in Bilston and Hackney Empire's pantomime. And recently we were very glad to join her at Connecting All Communities community iftar as well. And I'd also like to send a special thanks to the Speaker's consort, her wonderful mum, who welcomed me into this council with some delicious homemade vegan samosas. So thank you very much for everything you've done this year. We really appreciate it.
Would any other members across the chamber like to say a few words? And I've been informed that Councillor Ross would like to say a few words. And Councillor Steinberger afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to add my thanks to Councillor Garcia as my fellow ward councillor for her commitment to the role of Speaker and the initiatives that she has implemented through the past year. From an event at St Mary's Community Garden bringing local residents together for intergenerational activities in a beautiful space which happens to be in our very own Haggerston ward, to the recent celebration event right here at Hackney Town Hall. You've brought about first of hopefully many's, and it was really important in such a diverse borough to elect our first hijabi-wearing Muslim woman, not to mention young, as Speaker for Hackney Council. I've seen your confidence and skills flourish through your Speaker term, and just want to say well done and thank you.
Councillor Steinberger, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Although my leader has thanked on behalf of us, I couldn't keep myself back to add a little bit of spice. I must say, the seriousness, the politeness and respect you brought in this chamber from the opposition, the way you treated us was unbelievable. I learned a lot from you. You know, you can always learn from different councillors what, how and when. And I must say, we will miss you, although I'm sure the new speaker will follow suit. But I really appreciate the fact that you let democracy work in Hackney. And you gave us pride in Hackney. And I would say you were our speaker. You weren't just the Labour Party speaker, you were the whole chamber speaker. And for that, I really want to thank you and for all the good work you've done. I've been a councillor for 17 years. I've never seen before even the seriousness. There was prayers going on and other stuff. Everything you took in such a special manner. And it's different. We looked like, not just politicians, we looked like proper people from Hackney the last year. So I really want to thank you. You were unbelievable. And thank you again for letting us talk and for giving us the chance. I'm going to be a bit cheeky. I'm just going to ask if I can, a quick thing about Ian. Ian has been here for 17 years. And I want to ask, it's just a quick thing from all the parties together, if we can do something. It's not for now, it's just for the future, before he leaves, because he's done a tremendous job here. And another one who's made Hackney proud. So I just want us to work as one party. I know we're not the same party, but go together and do something for Ian to thank him. And Liverpool's gain is going to be our loss. Thank you. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you all for those very heartfelt words. Can we agree on a vote of thanks? We now come to the presentation to Councillor Humera Garcia as the outgoing speaker. What's that for? Oh, for the con. Wow. I would now like to ask Councillor Humera Garcia to respond to the vote of thanks.
Good evening, Deputy Lieutenant Stephen Howlett, Mayor Glanville, councillors, freemen of the borough, ladies and gentlemen, and Mum. I'd like to begin by thanking all the officers and members of staff for making sure tonight's annual general meeting can take place. Thank you, Mayor Glanville, my colleague, Councillor Midnight Ross, and the leaders of the opposition and councillor for your kind words and your support during my tenure. I am highly honoured to have been chosen by my colleagues to serve the London Borough of Hackney in the role of Speaker for the past year. It has been a real privilege for which I will always remember and be grateful for. Never in my wildest dream would I have thought that I would get the privilege of being the Speaker of London Borough of Hackney, my home, my borough, where I was born and raised. Speaker has been such a wonderful voyage of discovery. I found out things I never knew before and has given me a greater knowledge of our borough and the people who live here. I have met many amazing people, and I would never have dreamt of meeting, and some of who were new to me, and some of who were old friends. The past year has exposed me further to the beauty and vibrancy of our borough. Every individual, community, event has enhanced me as a person, and those experiences will remain a part of who I am. I've updated you throughout my tenure with the engagements that I have done. I have not been at loss for things to do as a speaker, and I'm grateful for Madam Speaker for all her support. Every engagement was special. In particular, citizenships, where I was lucky enough to take part in our new citizens' joyous and emotional moments, including my own cousin's citizenship, in the very place where my parents had theirs. My most recent memorable moment was seeing my former English teacher, Miss Williams from Clapton Girls Academy, receiving a Hackney Star Award. She has been teaching for over 33 years and is a brilliant English teacher, so I was really happy to see her being recognised. And to end with, I would like to give my thanks to all the officers in the Mayor's and Speaker's office for their patience and kindness, my fellow councillors for the support throughout my tenure and for the kind words, my Hackney Labour Group family for being my foundation and strength, Munaf, Turkin, Dilara, my sisters and my fellow councillors who stepped in as my consort when I needed it, and Councillor Anya Sizer, Madam Speaker, who served as a Deputy Speaker for the past year for her incredible support and her kindness, and I know she'll be an amazing speaker. Deputy Lieutenant Stephen Howlett, who has been incredible and is one of the most loveliest person I have ever met. Thank you for your support. I have enjoyed every interaction with you. I would also like to take this opportunity to say a special thanks to Dawn, Louise, Tessa, Natalie, Mark, and Ben for always ensuring I was prepared for a full council. They really did take me under the wing. It is because of them I very much enjoyed chairing full council meetings. And a huge thank you to Officer Janeway for your kindness, patience, and your support. It is Jane who made everything possible during my speakership. So thank you very much. I also want to mention all the security in Hackney Council. I spent so much time here, they became my friends. You know, Eric, my mace bearer, to name a few, Emma and James. I would like to say they're family now. And they've always been there whenever I needed help and support, and they've come to rescue me more than once. So I'm very grateful for also the security in Hackney Town Hall. Finally, a special thanks to my consort, my mum Najma Garasia, my dad Rafiq Garasia, and my siblings for the patience and unconditional support. Every time I had to prepare for an event or a meeting, it would become a whole family affair. So I'm thankful for their love and presence. As a Hackney girl, I'm very proud to have served the people of Hackney and represent our borough across London. It has been a wonderful experience that I'll always remember. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to agenda item 4. I now invite nominations for the position of Deputy Speaker for the municipal year 2023-2024. Are there nominations? Is there a seconder? Thank you. Do any other members wish to say anything in support of the nomination?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and just congratulations to the outgoing Speaker, a true testament of what Hackney does, through to Youth Parliament, local councillor, and then Speaker. That is what Hackney does. This is what it's about, opportunities, and you are definitely a role model for other young people to look and aspire to. Councillor Sizer, congratulations on your new role. I must admit, I was a little bit triggered when Councillor Race talked about just this week you appeared in my room with not just one, but 2 slices of cake. And Madam Speaker, this is a really good time for me to tell you, I'm always going to be too polite to refuse cake. So please approach my door wisely. But now for the matter of hand, to why I rise, to nominate my friend and colleague, Councillor Sousa Ronju. Thank you. Sheila, you have been a proud citizen and lived in Hackney nearly 40 years, a proud council tenant, an advocate in the community, whether it's the Wilton Way Community Hall, whether it's immediate theatre. So it's no surprise, Madam Speaker, that I would say she's very visible in the community. Listening to the concerns of residents, whether it's the cost of living crisis, whether it's the rise in utility bills, perhaps in benefit, education, all the things that are important to our community. She's listening and continues to advocate on those things. It was really interesting because the word kindness and helping came through when we spoke about you, Madam Speaker, but I can also say the same thing about Sheila. And it's really hard to see that you are one of our new councillors, because not just in the community, but here as part of our collective group of councillors, you are always eager to look, support and help. It's just your go-to, it's your default position. And actually, Madam Speaker, I know that I rise to say you were kind, and if elected, you also have a deputy who also is very kind. So I'm not quite sure who will outdo one in kindness. I wait to see. But in a time when we are in the cost of living crisis, instability in government, people with really difficult times, we must not underestimate good kindness, care and consideration, and this is what our colleagues is grounded with. And I believe she will be an anchor to support you in the role that you want to do while she is serving our Hackney community. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I invite the seconder.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an enormous privilege to be able to second Councillor Sheila Sotho-Ringer's nomination to the role of Deputy Speaker for the municipal year 2023 to 2024. I know her sister, Sue, and nephew to Cassie are very proud of her, as are both Sophie and I. That same nephew to Cassie relayed the Olympic torch to the Town Hall steps some 11 years ago. The same beacon of hope very much still shines bright in Sheila. Unlike many of us, Sheila does not come to this place through politics or tribalism. Rather, her journey here is as a result of, and because she is, a genuine community facilitator. In 30 years living in Hackney, prior to becoming a councillor, Sheila has been chair, secretary and treasurer of our local TRA on the Wilton estate, as well as having run the youth clubs, music group and the cultural engagement programmes. She has a visceral passion for youth engagement and ending food poverty. And I know she will continue to champion those causes in this role. Speaker Sizer, you could not have asked for a more hard-working and engaged Deputy Speaker. And I'm excited about Sheila getting to shine her light over the borough in the same way she has done for Hackney Central over the last 40 years.
Do any other members wish to say anything in support of the nomination? Councillor Turbo de Lof wishes to speak in support.
It has been very honored to meet Councillor Sotho-Ringe. It would be difficult not to share some tears because I absolutely admire Councillor Ringe. Councillor Sotho-Ringe has become a pillar of wisdom, kindness, and deep empathy for residents across ages in all our borough. I am in absolute awe with the depth of knowledge that and expertise Councillor Rouge has in our community work, in youth work, education, women's rights, workers' rights, and of course, tenants' residents associations. Councillor was one of the first people that visited me at hospital when I had that unexpected surgery last year. And after showering me with love and care, it didn't take long for us to start talking about communities. And it was there that we decided to launch support for Hackney residents, tenants associations. And now, they're successfully calling our first session, we now have a Hackney Forum of Tenants Resident Association, which Councillor Rouge has led with absolute expertise, knowledge, and inspiration. We are very lucky to have you, Councillor Sheila Sousa Rouge. We absolutely respect you and admire you, and I can't wait to see the amazing things that you're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Can we agree on the nomination of Councillor Sheila Sousa Rouge to the office of Deputy Speaker for 2023-2024? I very happily declare that Councillor Sheila Sousa Rouge has been elected Deputy Speaker for the municipal year 2023-24. I would now like to invite Councillor Garcia and her consort to make way for Deputy Speaker Sousa Rouge and her consort. There will also be a brief pause in the proceedings while the Deputy Speaker is robed. Meeting to order now, thank you. Please be seated.
May I please ask the incoming Deputy Speaker, Councillor Susu Runga, to raise her right hand and read the words of the Declaration of Acceptance of Office.
Mistake. I, Councillor Sheila Susu-Runga, having been elected to the office of Deputy Speaker of the London Borough of Hackney, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. Thank you.
I'd like to invite the Deputy Speaker to say a few words and announce the name of her consort.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It will be a privilege to be your deputy and to learn from you and to support you in your role. Thank you, Councillor Garcia, for paving the way. You are simply the best. Some of you here today, like me, will fondly remember a music venue in Hackney called All Nations. I'm proud to serve a borough that welcomes and values all nations, that promotes tolerance, fairness, and inclusiveness. Hackney's diversity is its strength. It will be a privilege to advocate for our Hackney today as Deputy Speaker, but I will never forget those from all nations who have paved the way. I would like to present my consort, Charmaine Humphreys, one of the most grounded and courageous people I know. We both have Hackney at our hearts. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you so much. We now move on to agenda item 5. Apologies for absence have been received from councillors Etty, Lufkin, Maxwell, Selman, and apologies for lateness have been received from, nope, she's here. Are there any other apologies? Agenda item 6, are there any declarations of interest? Agenda item 7 are the minutes of the meeting of the council held on the 1st of March 2023, agreed as true and accurate recordings of proceedings. Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 8, the Speaker's Programme for the municipal year. Good evening, Mayor Glanville, councillors, family and friends, Freeman of the Borough, Deputy Lieutenant Stephen Howlett and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am truly honoured and grateful to have this opportunity to serve the London Borough of Hackney in the role of Speaker for this municipal year. I'm really thankful to Mayor Glanville for nominating me and to Councillor Race for seconding and to my colleagues for their really kind words also. I want to thank the council officers and specifically Jane Ware from the Speaker's office who works so hard behind the scenes. This AGM, council services and Speaker's office would not be possible without them, so thank you. Thank you too to my fantastic Hackney Labour group who have shown me such encouragement and support since becoming a councillor. It is an honour to work together for this borough. And I want to take a moment now to sincerely thank the outgoing Speaker, Councillor Garcia, for the kindness and consideration that she has shown me this year. She has held the office of Speaker with great dignity, and it has been a joy to be under her leadership as Deputy Speaker. Thank you for your wisdom, honesty and friendship. Being a woman in leadership is not always an easy path, but with fellow women such as Councillor Garcia cheering you on, the path is made much smoother, and for that I will always be thankful. Hackney is a wonderful place for many of us to proudly call our home, and over this last year it has been a privilege to meet so many people serving and shaping and caring for this incredible borough. Hackney is home to countless unsung heroes, people such as ZSV, the Jewish Food Distribution Centre, Hoxton Trust, Ivy Street Family Centre, and the staff at Britannia Leisure Centre in my ward who work tirelessly for the needs of others. There are too many to name, but it has been one of the greatest privileges to meet these and so many other people and to hear their stories. It is the diverse, determined and compassionate nature of Hackney that I think most sums up why this borough is such a fitting home for myself and my family to live out our stories too. Ours is a family built through immigration and perseverance on both sides. My father's family, as Jews, were forced to leave their homes during the pogroms and find hope in England and a new life. My mother's side came from Dublin and would often tell the story of seeing signs outside pubs saying no blacks, no Jews, no Irish. Their response to this was also to persevere and actually run their own pub not far from where we stand today. This family trait of turning difficulties into something good is one I think has run through my own life too. Years of struggle with infertility has led to my work in the fertility sector for nearly 2 decades. Being an adoptive parent has led me to speak out about the many highs and lows of adoption, and being the parent of a child with additional needs has led me to champion causes such as raising awareness of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. One of my favourite quotes comes from the Bible and urges us to comfort others with the comfort that we have received. I hope this year as Speaker to continue to live out that truth and to champion the voices of others as I take on the Speaker's role. I would now really proudly like to introduce my consort for the year, Bernadette Bramble. Bernadette has already been my rock this last year as Deputy, and I am incredibly grateful to her that we will be journeying this next year together. I have learned a huge amount from her, not least how to grow every vegetable under the sun. Thank you, Bernadette, for your support and friendship, and I'm really excited to keep doing this role together. It is customary now for the Speaker to nominate at least one charity to support, and this year I'm really proud to introduce the 3 charities I will be working with and supporting. Firstly, St Joseph's Hospice, who run the most amazing hospice care here in the heart of Hackney, a wonderful resource for countless families, offering hope and understanding, who have already been a huge support for us personally as a family when we sadly lost our father-in-law a few years ago. Next, the wonderful Hoxton Hall. This beautiful old music hall is a hub of community projects, from young women's groups to art projects, as well as theatre productions, and one of the best pantomimes I have seen. Finally, Ministry of Stories, who provide a space for local children to build their confidence and creativity through the power of speech and writing. One of the highlights of my time as councillor has been my involvement with their inspirational Speak Up events, which see local children find their voices and gain confidence to speak in front of parents, teachers, and even local MPs. I am honoured and proud to represent all 3 charities and look forward to what we can achieve this year together. Finally, I want to thank my family and friends here this evening for always cheering me on. To my wonderful husband and 3 children, Hope, Barney and Chris, for celebrating the highs, standing by me in the lows, and never taking me too seriously. And yes, I'm looking at you, Barney. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of the evening. We move on to agenda item 9. Council has before it a report as circulated in the supplementary agenda on the establishment and composition of the council's committees, etc. Will council agree the following recommendations? That the committees, subcommittees, commissions, panels and boards as referred to in this report and the accompanying appendices be established for the 2023-24 municipal year. That the appointment to those committees, etc., as set out in appendices 2 and 3 attached to this report be approved. That the nominations for chairs and vice chairs to those committees, etc., as set out in appendix 2 to this report be approved. Thank you. Agenda item 10. Council has before it a report on appointments and nominations to outside bodies as circulated in the supplementary agenda. Will members agree the appointments or nominations for appointments of councillors outside bodies on behalf of the council as set out in appendix 1? Thank you. We then move on to agenda item 11, which is the Mayor's statement, which is I invite Mayor Glanville to make his statement, and you have no more than 10 minutes.
Madam Speaker, we're almost on the home straight, people will be pleased to know. Congratulations again on your new role, and I really do look forward to working with you and your charities, your consort and the Deputy Speaker. A hugely warm welcome to everyone here tonight. I think we'd all agree it's a very warm room. I'd like to thank all of our guests, especially our Deputy Lieutenant, our Freeman officers, community leaders, activists, faith leaders, partners, cabinet colleagues and councillors for coming, and thank you all collectively for the work that you do to deliver for Hackney and our communities. I also echo what Councillor Garcia and Councillor Sizer have said about the Mayor and Speaker's Office team working with governance for putting on the event this evening, working with security, and although we haven't eaten the food yet, our catering colleagues that are waiting for us to finish tonight. It'd be fair to say this is not an average evening in Hackney Town Hall, or indeed this chamber. This is a special moment. We don't do this every week for people that have only been here the once. It is also a very special night for Councillor Garbett, and I'm sure the whole chamber would like to wish her an incredibly happy birthday, and thank you for spending it with us. So happy birthday, Councillor Garbett. May there be cake, perhaps in the future. But seriously, without all of you and the commitment of everyone in this room, and I think there are a lot of families of councillors in the room, and we cannot do what we do without your support. I've said that in my first speech as Mayor, and I echo it tonight to everyone in this room that is supporting a councillor or colleague. I think what we've seen is the power of collective action. I'm really struck by the type of Hackney that Councillor Suso-Runge describes. And it is one of collective commitment, dedication, and the importance of community relationships. Last year when I spoke, I reflected on just how good it was to be back in the council chamber after those long years of COVID. And while we're still dealing with those challenges and inequalities, we have to remember just how fortunate we are to be able to gather in the council chamber. Mostly all of us are in the same room, and I'm really sorry for those in the cheap seats in the committee rooms. We will see you in about an hour's time for food. But for everyone else, we're face to face and side by side. Despite all of this, the year has not been without its challenges. Global events have rocked our communities, and there's no sign to the end of the conflict in Ukraine. And we continue to stand with and support our Ukrainian cousins and condemn the Russian aggression that hits them night after night. It makes me so proud that Hackney has welcomed so many Ukrainians thanks to the generosity of hosts in our communities, and I'll come back to the Homes for Ukraine scheme later. Borough is also, though, home to perhaps more hidden and less proud part of our system of migration, and that is the Home Office hotels that house refugees and asylum seekers. We're not ashamed of those places. We don't attack them or criticise them as happens elsewhere in the country, but we just recognise they're a real place of limbo and uncertainty for people that are just fleeing persecution. And we continue to offer a huge amount of support to them. And Councillor Woodley and I saw some of those families that our children's centres support only in the last couple of weeks. We've also continued to support those taking refuge from Afghanistan, and collectively, I think that proud record of supporting refugees and asylum seekers. Madam Speaker, I think we're very collectively clear, everyone, that we stand against the national and international rhetoric against those seeking sanctuary and a better life. And I know Councillor Williams continues to lead that charge, and it's a theme I will also return to. There was a speech made by at the National Conservatism Conference this week, and a journalist tried to pit people against it, but it was about faith, family and flags. And I think Hackney actually has a lot to teach the world about faith, family and flags. We're not a place to be seen as pejorative. We're a place that is really proud of our identities and what we stand for. And we saw that again with the recent earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. They deeply affected people in this room, Hackney residents from the Middle East more broadly, and especially those residents with Turkish and Kurdish heritage. That never has gone away from those families. It continues to haunt those that have lost loved ones, and it continues to put an additional burden on communities that have not just rallied to that crisis, but we're still dealing with grief and challenge from COVID. So I think we continue to show solidarity to whatever community in Hackney has been suffering over recent years, and continue to urge the government to recognise things like the visa scheme that would really improve the lives of Turkish and Kurdish people if they were to come and join their families and get that additional support. And I don't want to gloss over, it's not on our TV screens every night, but the awful crisis in Sudan and the lack of safe and legal routes for those people to come to Hackney. We're a proudly internationalist place. One of the things I was proud of this year was joining Madam Speaker, Councillor Desmond, our Deputy Lieutenant, and Hackney Rugby in Suresnes, our twin town on the outskirts of Paris. You know, it was a commitment made 60 years ago to a European place to never go to war again with our European brothers and sisters. And that deep connection that is kept alive by Hackney Rugby and the St John of Jerusalem Festival Chorus, I think is an incredible part of our civic life. And I think all of us in this room value our international relationships. Though we also recognise that closer to home, people might think that those are a luxury when faced with the cost of living crisis, the housing crisis in Hackney, and all of the shocks of food prices that have hit the headlines in recent weeks. So we don't treat or take for granted the need to work with communities in Hackney. We are really proud of our poverty reduction work. It's why we back the Mayor of London in his commitment to introduce universal free school meals in our state primary schools. It's why we set up the task force. It's why we have things like the Money Hub. And it's that continued investment in making sure that we do all that we can to support the most vulnerable here in Hackney. We talked a lot about home. And I think it'd be remiss from us celebrating what home represents to us here in Hackney, we didn't also recognise the deepening homelessness crisis. We've seen a 15% increase in the number of households presenting as homeless, and that represents 1.5% now of Hackney's overall population. And I've said before, and I'll just repeat it again, at least one child in every one of our classrooms in Hackney is homeless. That is a national scandal created by national failures in policy. And all of us, whether we're in the community sector or this council, are left picking up the pieces. We pick up those pieces, though, as Deputy Mayor Bramble suggested, against continued austerity, continued funding cuts and growing pressures. Our manifesto, which we'll be celebrating in terms of delivery and strategy item this evening, remains ambitious against that backdrop and presents a clear set of commitments and direction for the council and the borough. It's very easy to just read out a long list of achievements, but I just recognise how much they're built on the people in this room and the people in this room that we represent more broadly in terms of staff and the residents of Hackney. I'm very proud of the work, as I said, that we've done around poverty reduction, but also the expansion of SEND. We've talked about the importance of you, Madam Speaker, but it is an absolute intrinsic part of the equity that we want to bring to our school system and building those new places. We will on Monday be taking to Cabinet our climate action plan. We do all of the work that we do in the borough, recognising the importance of social justice in our climate action plan. And that is at the heart of the way we work on decarbonisation, green infrastructure, active travel. It's at the heart of why we're building new council homes with plans to build 1,000 across this administration. We don't, though, forget the communities we already represent and the housing stock that our residents live in. And I'm proud that in the census, over 40% of Hackney residents live in social housing, but not all of that social housing is good. So we've been holding to account housing associations and working with them, also putting our own house in order in terms of investment in our stock. And we'll continue to do that, and we'll be asking for more resources from government. We're very proud of Parks and Green Spaces, and I was able to celebrate on the eve, I think, of Easter half term, Easter holidays and half term, the investment in our Shoreditch Park redevelopment, but also our playgrounds and all of that work. This hasn't gone unrecognised nationally and internationally, and I did just want to highlight some awards that we've won in recent weeks and awards that have been highlighted. I was privileged to be at the Royal Institute of British Architects last week, twice actually, once to celebrate and honour the life of Stephen Lawrence, and Hackney School of Food, although it didn't get an award last week, was highlighted, but also Chato, Taylor and Wilmot on Frampton Park Estate, 21st century council housing in the heart of our communities, winning national awards. That is what this council is about. Also, that Veronica Ryan Award for the Turner Prize in our high streets, Britannia winning numerous awards, and then an incredible council team winning Circular Economy Success last week for their recycling and zero waste work. I did also, before my time runs out though, want to highlight something that is probably unsung and gone unnoticed, and that is the Hackney Youth Justice Service, which has also been recognised by the Inspectorate of Her Majesty's Inspectorate for Probation as a powerfully anti-racist force within the council, and a stance that they place in safeguarding our children and young people in the youth justice system and on the verge of it, having that anti-racist practice built in, but also making sure that our children are safe, and seeing that recognised, I think, our values and our action keeping people safe. I'll finish there, Madam Speaker, but I'm sure we'll come back to the other themes. But I did just want to pay tribute to Ian. Just to answer Councillor Steinberger, we've got one more full council where we can properly honour Ian before he makes that move to Liverpool that we're very proud of. I did want to pay tribute to our colleague Chuck in that spirit, and another great council leader that has left us to laugh in this chamber. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you so much, Mayor Glanville. I just want to acknowledge and say welcome to Meg Hillier MP, who's just joined us, and on a personal level to say thank you for always being such a champion of women. I now invite the Majority Opposition Group Leader to respond. You have no more than 5 minutes.
Madam Speaker, may I offer you my warmest congratulations on your appointment as Speaker. And I feel certain that you'll wear the chain of office with pride and distinction. We look forward to working with you in collaboration with your team during the coming year. And of course, while the Mayor has mentioned it, I've got to wish Uncle Robert a returned early birthday. I'm not sure whether you're here on choice, necessity, whatever it is. I hope you have a good one. So the AGM, the annual general meeting, marks the beginning of the Council's municipal year. And local government has, of course, a key role to play in providing essential services to our residents. And in the current climate of uncertainty comes fresh challenges, but also fresh opportunities to maintain frontline services upon which our residents rely. One thing is very clear, though, as Albert Einstein once famously said, one cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that created them. Madam Speaker, I have the deepest respect for our ordinary residents, and I use the word advisedly, who display great resilience and fortitude in meeting the needs of their families, faced as they are due to the unfolding tragedy in Ukraine, with an unprecedented cost of living crisis, coupled with the cost of energy that has gone through the roof, which in turn has driven up prices of everyday staple items to levels never seen before. And I trust this administration will continue to offer support equally to all our residents who need their support. Madam Speaker, this year, the very moving Holocaust Memorial Day event, wonderfully organized by the Speaker's office, struck a particular chord with me because the theme centered around ordinary people and highlighted the life of an ordinary, Dutch lady, the great aunt of a Hackney officer, who, although knew she would be putting her life in great danger, nevertheless displayed immense courage and bravery by sheltering Jewish children during the Nazi occupation of the Netherlands, before being discovered and sadly shot by the Nazis, as so many other brave and selfless people were. To slightly misquote Alan Turing, but sometimes it's ordinary people no one can imagine anything of, who do the things no one can imagine. Madam Speaker, here in Hackney, we too have unsung heroes, ordinary people doing the most extraordinary things by stepping up in the voluntary sector to support our residents along the whole raft of diverse programs to enhance the quality of life for the most vulnerable members of society. And it's only right and proper that we recognise their contributions to the lives of Hackney residents, as showcased by the Mayor's Civic Award presentations. Madam Speaker, just to move on, and finally, I know you won't thank me for saying so, and I know that it shies away from publicity, but I do want to put on record my thanks to the Acting Chief Executive Officer, Ian Williams, who has announced that he will be leaving the Council after, I believe, 17 years of exemplary service to take up a major post at Liverpool City Council, although I think he preferred the Everton City Council. But nevertheless, Ian joined Hackney when its finances were in a parlour state. And through sheer hard work and extreme diligence, Ian and his team helped turn around one of the most poorly performing councils in the country to now being one of the very best, an authority whose finances are set in the soundest of footings. It will be hard to follow, and I will certainly miss him. On a personal level, Ian's kindness and approachability and always helpful assistance over many years to both myself and my colleagues have been greatly appreciated. And so we wish him great good fortune and continued success in the future. And I urge the Council to formally recognise Ian's immense contribution to the Council, to Hackney, and over so many years. And with that, Madam Speaker, I hand back the agenda to you and can move on with the agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Meg Glanville, do you wish to reply? Oh, apologies. Huge apologies to the birthday girl. I now invite the minority opposition group to respond. You have no more than 5 minutes.
Thank you, and thank you, new speaker. It's wonderful to see you up there. And thank you everyone for your birthday wishes. I celebrated at the weekend, so I'm very, very happy to be here. I'd also like to welcome our guests. It's wonderful to see everyone here, and we recognise it's been an incredibly challenging year for some of the reasons that have already been mentioned in terms of decade of austerity, the pandemic, the impacts of Brexit and the cost of living. And we want to thank you for all you do for residents and continue to do to make their lives better in this borough. We'd just quickly like to add our thanks to Ian for the guidance and patience you've shown us, and wish you all the best in your new role. It's a heavy heart that we see you go. Here in Hackney, I'd like to talk a bit about how great it is to be back here as the leader of the Green Group alongside Councillor Vinnie Lowick in our Green Group of 2. And like to just take a little bit of an opportunity to just draw your attention to the successes the Greens had in the local elections at the beginning of the month, where we increased our seats by 250, which took us up to 772. Just for context, UKIP reached 495 at their peak. So we are growing in support across the country, and just wanted to reference that here this evening. So here in Hackney, it's an absolute privilege to have been listening to residents and acting on things that have been important to them, and drawing attentions to issues they raise and being able to action those in line with our values. To reflect on little of what we've been doing as Green Party councillors, it's been, I'm not going to lie, it has been quite a steep learning curve, and we want to thank all the officers for their guidance from helping us get our ward forums back up and running, as well as navigating the constitution to make us a really effective opposition. I know how much the cabinet have enjoyed me attending meetings and asking them all questions quite regularly. A lot of what we do is in our wards, and for me that's in Dalston, working really hard with people like the Ridley Road market traders, and we've got the chair of the Traders Association as a guest here this evening, Hemin Hammer, and Alistair Lubbock is an example of the work he's been doing in Hackney Downs, working cross-party with councillors in this chamber, supporting the soft play organisation Kids Mania. So we welcome Jocelyn, their manager, this evening as well. We've loved attending community events across Hackney and working with wonderful resident and community groups, attending events that have been mentioned this evening, like the Holocaust Memorial event, the very sad and tragic vigil for the murder of young trans woman Brianna Gay, as well as solidarity action with people suffering globally and actions locally in our estates. We'd like to just mention the green motion we passed together here around striking workers, and how closely we've been working with unions, standing with them in the rain, the snow and the sunshine on picket lines outside hospitals, train stations and local libraries to support their calls for fair pay and conditions, and to challenge local compulsory redundancies of library staff. We've also stood alongside renters facing evictions and been pushing for the council to bring more landlord licensing in and hold landlords to account, welcoming investment in this service, this budget. And we know that everyone has the right to a secure and cosy home. And we want to make sure that we're doing as much as possible to address the damp and mould that we hear so much from our residents in our ward, and to do as much as possible to make sure our homes are for people and not for profit. Last year, I committed in this chamber to make sure that we do as much as possible for the climate and biological emergency, and I think we've been doing just that. Getting the council to pass a motion to support the climate and ecological bill. We've been protecting trees. We've been exposing the fossil fuel investment in the pension fund, and we're ensuring that the climate is considered in all decision making. This is vital as we are rapidly running out of time to stop irreversible damage. Councillor Billy Lubbock and I joined Hackney Exiles protest in Westminster recently, and we are continued to be concerned and infuriated that these calls are not being heard. The Green Party believes in protecting human rights and to living in a democratic society. Democracy is fundamental to the success or failure of a country, fundamental to addressing inequality and the other challenges we face. Our commitment to this is reflected in our work on Fair Votes motion that we passed in the full council, the work we do with community groups and campaigners and getting them to come into this chamber to speak directly to those in power, and for openly speaking out about the need for a directly elected head of state. So Alistair and I joined the protest at the coronation recently. I scrutinised the police activity and was shocked by the right of protest, for some being taken away before protest even took place, with no charges and receiving a Met apology. I witnessed chaos outside the National Portrait Gallery as royalists tried to get a viewing spot while Republic supporters wanted to be with protesters in their yellow t-shirts and their Not My King signs. There was no coordination, it was dangerously crowded and tensions were increasing, which was only relieved by the protesters deciding to take a marching route. In our borough, 20 people attending a non-violent animal action training by an animal rights organisation were also arrested on the same day. 1 minute. Nothing to do with the coronation and was traumatic for those 20 people involved. Also, the night before the coronation, we heard that Westminster Night Stars who support women were also arrested. These events I find truly alarming and an assault on our rights. Hackney has a history of activism, and we need to make sure there is a safe space for people to voice dissent, as many groups do, especially like we've seen tonight with people talking from the Unison, as well as the Colston Primary School out on our town steps tonight. We need to be proud of that dissent and make sure people are able to voice their opinions. Something else I've been working on has been holding the police to account, making sure that we're stopping the inappropriate use of script search and is improving ways to keep children safe.
Time is nearly up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Meg Lanville, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I wasn't going to respond, Madam Speaker, but I thought there were a few topics that certainly Councillor Garbutt opened up I think are worthy of response. But I'll start with Councillor Levy. I think both speeches talked about the power of the Holocaust Memorial event here at the Town Hall and that thread of ordinary people. And I think ordinary can be a pejorative term, but actually giving it power through that event. And I think everything that people had said, you could describe people here that have been talked about, that have now taken first citizenship roles in the borough as ordinary, but they are far from ordinary, as are the people in the gallery. There are people that I have known almost my entire political life in the gallery that, again, far from ordinary, that made that enormous contribution. And while this event is the speaker making in the AGM, it's also a form of being able to say thank you as a council to the citizens of Hackney, not the subjects, the citizens of Hackney, that make an enormous difference to the civic life of our borough. And that's why we do this. It's not for our own grandeur or even the grandeur of you, Madam Speaker. And I think that's also reflected in the Civic Awards. I'm very pleased the Civic Awards are not taking place this evening in this chamber, but they're an important part of the way we also recognise those in Hackney and London and the country that have made an enormous difference. I think the point that you made, Councillor, about highlighting the equity of what we do around poverty reduction and food is incredibly important. The biggest lesson from COVID that we took as a council, and I think as a community, is there is no equity in a one-size-fits-all response. That leads to food parcels that people can't eat. That leads to helplines that people can't understand or access. And one of the things that I'm really proud of is the diverse range of communities that are represented in this room, and their tireless commitment to representing those communities in how the council operates. We have just launched our Here to Help booklet and online materials in community languages. Not all of them, you will have seen that, and it has been requested, and in my eyesight is Councillor Geloff, but there are others in this room that have Samatar as well that have asked for that. We're targeting those materials directly to those communities and then looking at amplification of those materials with those community voices. That is a palpable change in a system that even the first issue of that Here to Help booklet relied on you turning to the back page, reading your community language, ticking a box, and in theory sending it back to the town hall to get that translated. That's not the type of council that we want to be. And I thank all of those that aren't here tonight that have been part of that work. And it goes to where we invest our food support as well, making sure things like the Alexander Rose voucher can be spent on Ridley Road by those traders, seeing that money going to a circular economy, not an extractive economy, and making sure that people can actually access culturally competent food. And one of the tragedies is that those foods are often more expensive than those staples. So being really conscious of that and thinking about how our vouchers operate, how our community food banks operate, and going beyond those traditional institutions is incredibly important for what we do. And there are some of the people in this room that do that day in, day out, with or without the council. We are really proud that we hope that we do it with you. I know you would be there even in our absence, whether it's a local or national state, and we'll continue to advocate for that. One of the biggest things we can do as we go into the summer and the autumn spending moment and spending review is advocating for the Household Support Fund. The Household Support Fund was created during COVID, and it is a pot of funding that is given to local authorities that has to be spent with our communities to alleviate poverty and create support and opportunity. And unfortunately, each year you stagger towards that moment thinking whether that money is going to be available or not. And it is the absolute glue that keeps our food justice and poverty work alive. It's worth over £5 million here in Hackney, and we would not be able to do all the things that we deploy without it. So if we could have one thing of everyone on a cross-party basis is just reflect on what the absence of that £5 million worth of support would mean. I'd share the disquiet around tax on protesters, absolutely, and one of the proudest things that I've ever been a part of is the work of actually XR in Hackney, because Hackney XR, regardless of where the national debate is, has been an incredible contribution to the work of climate justice here in the borough. Everything else, I think, I'm not going to match in terms of description, and I'm going to talk about our labour record in a moment, Madam Speaker, under the strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That brings us on to agenda item 12, which is the Mayor's scheme of delegation, composition of the Cabinet, establishment and membership of executive committees and or subcommittees, and the appointment of mayoral advisors and member champions. So I now invite Mayor Glanville to speak to this report, which was circulated in the supplementary agenda.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There are no significant changes in the incredible talented group of people that work in those offices. All is a short name change from mayoral advisor to deputy cabinet member, which is a common title across London. It will help Councillor Ette and Councillor Marima represent our borough at the highest level across London and be recognised for what they do around the private rented sector and homelessness. The other small change, I guess, we've already agreed in terms of delegation. It was referenced around school closures, but the important thing we took a decision at full council is to bring that back under democratic control, which we have already done. Other than that, it is as set out, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Will the council then note the following? The elected mayor's composition of cabinet and appointment of councillors to serve as cabinet members as set out in Appendix 1. The appointment of councillors to serve as deputy cabinet members as set out in Appendix 2. The establishment of and appointments to executive committees as set out in Appendix 3. The appointment of member champions as set out in Appendix 4. The elected mayor's scheme of delegation for the 2023-24 as set out in Appendix 5. Will Council also agree to approve the amendments to the Constitution set out in Appendix 6, with the authority being delegated to the monitoring officer to make any further consequential amendments that may be required? Moving on to agenda item 13, the strategic plan update, working together for a better Hackney 22 to 26. I now invite Mayor Glanville to speak to this report, which was circulated in the supplementary agenda.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So this is a new innovation for our annual general meeting and a commitment that we made as an administration when we adopted the strategic plan, which is to annually come back to the people of Hackney so they can see and debate what we have been delivering on their behalf. I'd like to say a particular thank you to Deputy Mayor Nicholson in his role as Cabinet Member for Delivery, for coordinating with Cabinet colleagues more broadly the work around the strategic plan. It is obviously a joint document. It is led by the Cabinet and the corporate leadership team, but it would be absolutely impossible without the hard work of Sonia Khan, who's the head of strategy and policy at the council, and also the broader support of the Labour group, who I'm proud to work with. I'm under no illusions that we get to stand in this chamber on the shoulders of absolute giants when it comes to office. And I've already talked about ordinary people and the voluntary sector. One of the key themes of what we do around the strategic plan is it is working together for a better Hackney. It's not a traditional corporate plan that stays in the council chamber or stays in the town hall or even stays within the broader organisation of a council. It is designed to be delivered in partnership. And it will only be possible to deliver all of its objectives if we work holistically across all of the different systems across Hackney. And that is what we're updating this evening in year one. I do just want to pay tribute to trade unionists in the borough. It was referenced by Councillor Garbett. And I think we fully recognise the contribution of activists and trade unions, both within the council system, but also beyond. We won't always agree on the best course of action. We firmly do stand on the solidarity, and I don't know any member of the Labour group that I think has not been on a picket line, a protest, or stood in solidarity with our trade unions. The theme of the strategic plan is split into three clear areas. They also align with what are called the Mayor's priorities, but really they are council and corporate priorities. So the first is working together for a fairer and safer Hackney. And we said we will tackle inequality through poverty reduction and anti-racism, providing at least 1,000 more council homes, as we also improve the standards of our existing homes. We create pathways into decent jobs, we'll improve our customer services, we'll create safe, vibrant and successful town centres, neighbourhoods, and we'll foster stronger communities and a more inclusive economy. All of the headwinds of national policy and the economy work against those objectives, but these are just some of the things that we have been doing, including tackling poverty. We established the Money Hub, which, for those that don't know it, is a single point of access for emergency funding, and it's already doubled the existing contacts that the old structures had, distributed nearly £400,000 worth of discretionary funds. Perhaps even more crucially, delivered over £300,000 of pockets of Hackney residents since we started. For every pound we invested in that service, we've unlocked £1.49 of benefits to some of our most vulnerable residents. We have talked at length this evening about our record around refugees and migrants, but to just highlight the Homes to Ukraine scheme, 300 residents applied to sponsor. We've supported over 500 Ukrainian guests so far. We have 37 Afghan people in 6 different households. We've supported the Hong Kong visa routes, and we're supporting a wider network of support for Hong Kongers in London with the GLA. And also, crucially, whenever we look at hardship funds like the Household Support Fund, and although we cannot use that for this purpose, we do create pockets of funding to support those with no recourse to public funds. So we make sure that our poverty reduction does not rely on your immigration status here in Hackney. And we're continuing to invest, as Councillor Williams has recently announced, in support for the Windrush generation. Some other things that we are continuing to do, we're refurbishing our temporary accommodation units. We are committing to those 1,000 new council homes, some of which are already on site. We're refreshing our homelessness and sleeping strategy. And I think one of the highlights that we celebrated at the Hackney Stars Awards, which is the Staff Awards last week, is the team has ensured that the drug-related deaths in Hackney have fallen to their lowest level in almost a decade, despite record highs nationally. And we continue to campaign on the private rented sector, which Councillor Mooma leads. We also set new standards for temporary accommodation, and it is a scandal that one child in every classroom is living in a temporary accommodation. But 87% of all of our placements in temporary accommodation are into registered buildings. Contrast that against the London average, which is below a third. And that is a scandal, but I'm really proud of what Hackney does in terms of registration. We are also supporting our night shelter, creating more bed spaces, and investing in, as I said, the private rented sector. I can see that I've hit time, Madam Speaker, so I may come back to the other themes in response to the Leader of the Opposition and the Green Party. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can I ask, does council wish to debate the report? And if so, we have 10 minutes set aside. Councillor Binney-Lovett.
Hi, thank you very much for that update. And there's lots of really good stuff in the strategic plan that I've seen. So we commend the mayor and the officers on that. I seem to have lost my page here, but I'll do it from memory. Yeah, there are 2 things that we would like to see. Thank you very much, Councillor Garbutt. There are 2 things we would like to see feature in here a little bit more. We'd like to see the council move faster on retrofit in light of the climate emergency and obviously the cost of living crisis. It's mentioned that the cabinet will be looking at this year, but we're concerned that this work is needed as soon as possible. Are there any pilots happening, or can they be started? And I would also like to draw attention to the fact that the strategic plan talks about plant-based eating and the benefit of that for the climate as well. We could say we're glad to see it, and we hope that the administration will support a motion that we hope to bring in the future to endorse the plant-based treaty, which is an international treaty in support of plant-based eating. Thank you.
Can I give you 1 minute right to reply?
Yeah, 2 of my favourite topics, Councillor Binney-Lovett, and for people waiting food, you get to experience our commitment to plant-based eating this evening. And there's full descriptions and carbon impacts. And actually, we're going to measure the carbon impact of the hospitality tonight as a baseline and then reduce it over the life of the administration. But on a sort of more serious note, because this is only one night, we've got manifesto commitments around the circular economy, around supporting a circular supply chain, around decarbonisation, decarbonising Hackney residences, food choices, and the local economy. And also as a subset of the task force working with Councillor Coburn and others within the council, we're looking at how we can support plant-based menus in the broader public sector. I could not fail to mention Jackie Roberts and the Shoreditch Trust, which led a project called Bite Back 3000, where Hackney young people created a menu for their peers on the eve of COP26. So I think the most powerful thing is not just a top-down leadership around this, and look forward to seeing the motion, but it is about positive choices and presenting them within our economy and in our public sector. Because ultimately it's about high quality, tasty, healthy food that people choose to eat, that is good for the planet, good for their wallets, and good for themselves. And that is what we'll be doing through enhanced work through our food poverty, food justice, and schools work. I did just want to pick up a point about retrofit. It's very difficult to deliver retrofit in a climate of cuts, and where rents are under pressure, and where our HRA is facing significant funding challenges. And ultimately, the council has to deliver retrofit either from external funding, match funding, or its own rents and service charge. But what we've done is go out there and bid for additional funding. So Hackney Council have secured over £12 million from the government for the decarbonisation of our council buildings. So that builds on our track record of solar panels, heat pumps, and retrofit. That sits alongside our community energy work that I've talked about extensively in this chamber. And then we've also been successful within the public housing decarbonisation fund, so the social housing decarbonisation, where we've got £4.5 million of external resource. We're going to match that to 9 million and deliver a first set of energy efficiency and retrofit work across 700 council homes. We want and need more, but we're absolutely committed to delivering retrofit, and you'll see both of those programmes in terms of our corporate estate, our partnership with community, and our housing stock roll out during the course of the next municipal year.
Council then agree to note the annual update of the strategic plan. To agenda item 14, amendments to the pay policy statements 23-24. Council has before it a report as circulated in the supplementary agenda seeking approval of amendments to the Council's pay policy statement. Members are asked to note the amendments and approve the amended pay policy statements 23-24. Thank you. Agenda item 15. Council has before it a report seeking approval of a dispensation for Councillor Selman from attendance at meetings to accommodate her maternity leave. Will the Council agree to note, in accordance with Section 85 of the Local Government Act 1972, Councillor Selman's non-attendance at meetings until the 24th of January 24 to accommodate her maternity leave? And secondly, that during this time, Councillor Selman is exempted from the requirements of Section 85(1) so that she may lawfully continue to be a member of the authority.
Madam Speaker,
Yes.
I'm sure we all agree that. I think we've collectively talked previously, whether it's for illness or maternity reasons, just how egregious it is that we have to single out individual councillors and their personal circumstances. We know that is the law, we know that is regulation. I just want everyone in this chamber and beyond watching at home to know that Councillor Selman, even on maternity leave, is probably one of the hardest working councillors in the borough, and she works tirelessly with Woodbury Aid out in the community, doing her surgeries, supporting Councillor Young, and representing Woodbury Down with absolute aplomb. What she cannot always do is attend physically, as we're forced to do, even in those circumstances. So I just wanted to put that on public record, and my thanks to her for doing all of that when she's not obliged to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 16, calendar of meetings for the municipal year 2023-24. Will the council approve the recommendations as follows? That the proposed calendar of meetings for the 2023-24 municipal year as set out in Appendix 1 be approved. That the Director of Legal, Democratic and Electoral Services be authorised to make any changes to the calendar as may prove necessary from time to time. Thank you. I have great pleasure in closing the meeting now at this very warm room. Thank you so much for your attendance this evening, and I sincerely hope that you'll join me for a reception in the Assembly Halls shortly. And I now declare this council meeting closed.
If you're able, would you please be upstanding for the Speaker of the London Borough of Hackney, Councillor Anya Sizer.